All right. Hey, everyone. Andy Hall here. You're watching the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. Is that what we're calling it? I think that's what we're calling it. I think that's okay to call it that. What are we covering for news stories? I'm glad that you asked. Let's see. Tiny homes? We're going to talk about tiny homes. I think we're going to talk about tiny homes. Hate crimes. Katt Kerr. Oh, yeah. The Christian prophetess. Marco Rubio. Almost doing the right thing. And could you believe, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and this isn't the question of the day, but can you believe that oil and gas companies have been lying to us for 50 years? I know. Mind-blowing. Let's do something funny.
Fellas, the society we're making up, it needs to be oppressive towards women. I need ideas. Okay, well, we're gonna do a wage gap. That was on the list ages ago. We need new ideas. Come on. I was thinking we could make reproductive health really inconsistent based on where you live. Ooh, now that's a good idea. Okay, what else do we have? Pants, sir. I'm sorry, Jenkins, what?
Pants and clothing in general. Oh, pray tell, sir, when you buy pants, you look for your waist and leg measurements, do you not?
Yeah, that's the only way that makes sense.
We make it difficult for women to buy clothes by attaching arbitrary numbers to their sizes.
Like just a size 3 or something?
Precisely.
That's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, that would make it more difficult.
Huh, it doesn't stop there, sir.
It doesn't?
We make the sizes different between stores.
You are one twisted dude, but you're creative and I like you. I mean, it's inspired.
Which pocket did I put my wallet in? Huh, that reminds me, sir, they won't have pockets.
No pockets?
None.
Damn, we are really screwing this gender.
We will be, sir. And that brings us to phase 2. Operation Purse Industry.
So is there conspiracy between the pants industry and the purse industry? I don't know. That video just makes a very clear relationship. Maybe that's the real conspiracy theory people should be investigating. How's it going, everyone in the chat? Templeman. So you're getting new upgrades for the internets, huh? That's very good. Very comforting. Very good news. Brain bug. Hear the buzz, see the buzz, be the buzz. Brain bug. I don't know. Is that just a whole sales pitch for Brain Bug's channel? I think it could be. Robert X. Glad to see you. Jess M. Again, it's a good morning here in Massachusetts. Well, I'm feeling good. I got a decent night's sleep. So I don't know if it's good for everybody else, but I'm doing okay. A pure narcissistic comedian's view. It's like, I don't know if everyone else is doing okay, but I feel pretty nice this morning. Simply Secular. Morning from the West Coast. Early morning, David Paul. Glad to see that you're here. So I don't know. For those of you in the States, I don't know if you've gotten your stimulus check. I've gotten my stimulus check in my account. And the question is it enough? Now, of course, there are other parts of the stimulus bill. Having unemployment benefits continue. That's a positive benefit. Having the child tax credit, right, which is really just a UBI, Trojan horsing and universal basic income. But is the $1,400 in cash enough to make a difference in everyday American lives? I am skeptical about that number. And I'll have to tell you, right, out of all the pennies I've been able to save over the years, this stimulus check too, I just have it in my mind that that's my cancer money. This is every cent I own, because of course we know that in the United States of America, the number one reason why people go bankrupt is because of medical bills. So, and of course, what causes the biggest bills? Well, it's cancer treatment. So yes, to tell you the truth, out of all the money I've saved up over the years, I know that it could just disappear in case or when, because 1 in 3 Americans are going to be getting cancer at some point in their lives before they die, that all my money, that is just reserved for cancer. Everything I have in my mind, I just accept that this is my cancer money, as good or bad as it is. So is the $1,400 stimulus money enough? I don't think so. Under the medical tyranny that Americans live under, I don't think any amount of money is really enough until we have healthcare reform. That's my 2 cents. All right. We'll check out and see how everyone's doing in the chat this morning. Well, this is it, Jess M. It's not enough, but when people, and here's the insidious nature of the system, right? Here's the insidious nature of the system. When you don't get anything, you're happy for the little breadcrumbs. It's like being an abused child or a neglected child. It's like being a neglected child and your neglectful dad or mom gives you just a little bit of attention. And you're like, that's great. I am now happy. That's what this is like. I think Scott Duke says, I think the stimulus can put off disaster for many people in the short term. It's not a long-term remedy. UBI or whatever it's called is probably the long-term solution. And it is. It is. I would agree with that. Hello, laughing in disbelief. Yes, $1 billion would suffice. Sure. I think that should cover actually most cancer treatments. Marmaduke Scarlet. Good. Glad to see you. Samuel Gray, 19K MSW. Hello, everyone. You doing storm cleanup? Oh, really? Storm cleanup, huh? When I was married and living in the suburbs, we had trees, large trees in the yard. We had 3/4 of an acre plot of land. And anytime the wind blows, I'd be out picking up sticks, picking up branches. You're eating vegetable curry. Well, I am jealous. That's what I am. I am jealous. So yes, is the $1,400 stimulus really enough? Certainly not. Not until we have healthcare reform. Not until we all live. Not until Americans don't have to worry about going bankrupt because of medical bills. All right. So let's do some funny things. Let's do some memes, right? Let's do some memes. Let's see what's in the world of the funny images. Oh, I did have this to share with you first. I'm throwing an extra meme in today. This has to do with my question about the $1,400 stimulus. Here it is. Lockdowns, bad economy, unemployment, COVID-19, and the $1,400 stimmy right there. I am just amazed by the flex tape commercials. I'm just amazed by them. And that meme does work out, does seem to apply in many areas. All right. First funny, maybe feline related meme of the day. Let's take a look. I should be allowed on the counter. Change my mind. That cat looks like it means business. It looks like it means business. We're getting a cat soon. I don't know what the timeline is on the cat. My girlfriend is getting her second COVID-19 shot on Monday. I don't know if that progresses our cat timeline faster. It may not. I don't know. Everything happens for a reason. That reason is usually physics. Oh, the chain of causality, my friend. It is a harsh master. I don't even know I wonder what march or what rally he was at. I'm just curious about that sign and what rally he was at. Was he at a pro-science rally maybe? I don't know. I'm going to check the chat before we go to the last meme. Oh, here we go. Brain bug. If we socialize medicine, those treatment costs are going to drop in orders of magnitude. The profit margins on oncology are astronomical. They are crazy. And I have to tell you, I know people, I knew people who were in the insurance industry, and just the nature of the insurance. It's you just start hearing stories about who gets approved for what treatments, how hospitals bill people. It's crazy. When you put the profit, religion may, tarnish everything, poison everything. You can make the same case for a profit motive in the healthcare field. I think that's not a hop, skip, and a jump. Hey, James Henry, glad to see you here. All right. Let's see, one more. Oh, here it is. Society changes for the better. Conservatives. Oh, Bert. Society changes for the better. What's going to happen to the poor conservatives? What's going to happen to the poor would-be theocrats and oligarchs? They're not happy, everyone. They're not happy. All right, so what's the first story, you may ask me? Second cup of coffee. That's not the first story, but it does make me feel good. There's a theme here this morning. Me self-soothing myself, make me feel things are okay. But now I have to ruin all of that because we're going to the first news story. FBI under pressure to tackle anti-Asian hate crime in wake of Atlanta shootings. Asian American leaders dismayed that discrimination and harassment continues to be downplayed by federal and local police. Federal law enforcement agencies are under pressure to increase efforts to combat the rising tide of hate crimes against Asian Americans in the wake of the Atlanta, Georgia spy shootings that left 8 people dead, 6 of them women of Asian descent. The FBI and other police forces are facing criticism for levels of reporting of hate crimes that remain abysmally low, despite several attempts by Congress to highlight the outrages. Asian American community leaders expressed dismay on Wednesday, a day after the shootings at 3 massage parlors, that the discrimination and harassment historically faced by their communities continue to be downplayed. Don't worry, you're asking yourself, are we going to be talking about Donald J. Trump and his messaging about COVID-19 vis-a-vis Kung Flu? We're going to talk about that. Don't worry, just patience. Latest statistics for hate crimes compiled by the FBI for 2019. A total of 4,930 victims were identified where race or ethnicity was the motive. Of those, 4.4 were anti-Asian bias compared to 48.5 of anti-Black and 14.1 of anti-Hispanic bias. The data is widely accepted to be a gross understatement of the hate crime problem in America today, including for Asian Americans. A federal law has been in place since 1990 requiring records to be kept on hate crimes, but it is largely ineffective as individual police forces are under no obligation to participate. As a result, almost 90% of the law enforcement organizations involved in the 2019 hate crime study reported no incidences at all, a blank filing that many civil rights advocates regard as frankly unbelievable. On top of that, a federal report released in February found that more than 40% of hate crimes are never reported to the authorities. Yes. For those of you who don't live in the States, we have a balkanized police system here. Every municipality, every town, city, hamlet has a semi-independent. It's like we have the Holy Roman Empire for law enforcement here. Of course, the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. It was just a loose confederation of states. But I digress. That's how our police departments here in the States are. Loose, just on their own many times when there's federal legislation, unless you're actually making people do the things they need to do, especially police departments, they're not going to do them, right? Police departments, we're going to do chokeholds in one community, the next town over. We'll check chokeholds has nothing to do from one community to another. That's just one example. And the idea that some communities just don't fill out hate crime reports. It's toxically negligent. That's what it is. Toxic negligence. Let's see. The precise motivation of the male Atlanta spy shooter remains unclear. Yeah. Does it? Is it really unclear? With some reports suggesting that may have been from a sexual than a racial nature. Yeah, that's not true. But fears among Asian Americans have been elevated by the killings, coming as they do on top of the spike of hate incidents that followed the former U.S. President Donald Trump's xenophobic description of coronavirus as the Chinese virus. Joe Biden addressed the shootings on Wednesday. Whatever the motivation here, I know Asian Americans, they are concerned because, as you know, I have been speaking against the brutality against Asian Americans, and it's troubling. He said in his first week in office, the president signed an executive order designed to combat racism and xenophobia against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. It condemned inflammatory and xenophobic rhetoric without mentioning Trump by name. And last but not least, the order also instructed the U.S. Attorney General, since confirmed as the former federal judge Merrick Garland, to expand collection of data and public reporting hate incidents. Of course, all that means nothing unless you make the local police departments behave themselves. That's what it boils down to. And I want to say one thing. I was reading about this story too, about the person who did the shootings and Mother Jones. And it turns out that he loves, from social media posts, he loves drums and God. Very religious young man. Very religious young man. All right, here we go. Marmaduke Scarlet. I've thought for some time that the lack of centralized law enforcement is a problem. Not that Australia doesn't have police brutality issues too, but not to the same extent of, racism, misogyny. The United States of America is its own special breed of crazy here. And, this is the one thing, James Henry. I'm glad that at the very least you should treat them skeptically. And I've always told my kids that don't talk to the police. I would rather have, hey, MC Fractal, good to see you here this morning. Do not trust the police. Don't volunteer information. Go through the basic steps. Am I being arrested? Am I free to leave? I want to talk to my lawyer. Whenever we see a procedural cop show and there's cops shaking someone down for information, in the little room in the police department, I just turn to him and say, the first thing you should say, the only thing you should say is, I want to talk to my lawyer. I want to talk to my lawyer. I want to talk to my lawyer. That's the thing you should be saying. Friend bug. The police investigated themselves and found that they were innocent, right? I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. It's like, well, they have internal security, internal affairs, the police department. Yeah, but you see, that's cops policing cops. That's like having the Catholic Church saying, "Oh, we have internal affairs for our pedophile priests." It's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. Organizations cannot police themselves. Oh, they can, but they're not really policing themselves. Well, the thing is, James Henry, we create the conditions, right? Late stage capitalism, our form of American style capitalism, creates mental health problems with people. Poverty, poor education, poor nutrition. Yeah, it's just a petri dish. That's what it is. All right, I think I caught up with everything in the chat. Never talk to the police without a lawyer. Never talk to them without a lawyer. That's right. And that's a very good point. Cop shows are a form of social control. They are. The cops are the good guys. Even when they're bad, they're the good guys. Yeah, no. What's our next story? I'm glad that we're going to the tiny homes. I like tiny homes. I know B. I was on B's channel last night. And, B has a 75 square foot tiny home, which I think is freaking awesome, by the way. As I mentioned before, I had a 585 square foot condo, and I thought that was too much space for me, to tell you the truth. But if you don't know about this, tiny homes here in the States, depending on where you're at, can get into trouble. They can get into trouble with the local cities and towns that they park themselves in, or that they find that they put themselves in. So these tiny homes, they run afoul of governments. Like in this story from Reason Magazine. Links in the description. New Hampshire towns turn out tiny home dwellers. The regulatory pursuit of quality housing means some tiny home residents actually end up with no housing. It is horribly true. Did people get thrown out just before Christmas during a pandemic? Yes, that is exactly what happened in this New Hampshire town. All right, let's get into the story. For 12 years, the 25 residents of a tiny house community known as Walden Eco Village managed to live in peace with both nature and local zoning officials in the town of Petersboro, New Hampshire. The peace ended on December 15th, yes, December 15th, when the city ordered the eviction of all the community's residents whose diminutive dwellings, many of which were less than 400 square feet, offered an inexpensive but technically illegal housing option. An application from the village's owner to add more units to the property had alerted planning officials to the fact that his cottages and casitas were not permitted as full-time residences. A site visit also discovered a host of building code violations, including supposedly dangerous wiring. So you would think to yourself, if the town was acting in good faith, they would just say, hey, maybe you should fix that wiring. You should get your little house rewired. Because rewiring or fixing the wiring of a little house, it isn't like you're rewiring a whole house, which will take $30,000 maybe, right? Let's continue with the story. Nope, that's the wrong story, Andy. Let's go on. The timing for this is awful. Petersboro Fire Chief Ed Walker admitted to New Hampshire Public Radio. The code violations nevertheless necessitated the mid-winter evictions, he said. Former Walden tenants are now suing this village's owner, claiming he violated their leases by renting out homes that were not up to code. So they threw people, they got eviction notices on December 15th. They got eviction notices on December 15th. A year earlier, okay, so you're saying to yourself, well, these people, they probably knew what the code was for small homes, right? So it's really their fault. Yep, no, not really. Not really, because you might be surprised that there's this Kafka-esque Byzantine, being redundant here with words, system with many governments regarding little homes. And we're going to now delve into that issue. A year earlier, on the other side of the state, a tiny house owner, Brianna O'Brien, faced a similar struggle. In 2018, O'Brien purchased a $29,000 prefabricated tiny house that she eventually plopped down on her parents' property. Now, this is on her parents' property in the town of Hampton Falls. Within a few months, planning officials were telling O'Brien that her humble abode's single exit, lack of plumbing, and proximity to the property line made it impermissible under the local zoning code. O'Brien also lacked the occupancy permit that is required for full-time residences. Fixing these problems presented O'Brien with a catch-22. There is no building code for tiny houses. Let me say that again. There is no building code for tiny houses. So you have to get an occupancy permit to get zoned, she told Business Insider in December 2020. And you can't get an occupancy permit for a home that does not comply with the building code. It is a cycle that feeds into itself. So when there's no building code, you got to get an occupancy permit, but you can't get an occupancy permit for a home that does not comply with the building code. So in other words, the government can do whatever it wants to you, basically, whatever it wants. It's open to the fickleness of the local municipality, basically, if they want to mess with you in terms of having a tiny home. Tiny houses offer an attractive, affordable option for many residents of the live free or die state by cutting down on the floor space and frills that make standard homes so expensive. But that economizing often does not sit well with local zoning boards, which commonly require that rental properties come with costly amenities. For too many tiny house residents, the regulatory pursuit of quality housing means they end up with no housing whatsoever. So here's the insidious nature of the system, is that housing is crazy expensive here. Housing is insanely expensive. So people think, oh, we'll just go to tiny homes. There's a ton of shows on TV. On the Discovery Channel, I watch some shows with my girlfriend about tiny homes. They're fascinating. The people who want to live in tiny homes are fascinating too. But the thing is, it's typically there's no building codes. And when there's no building codes, that means the local zoning board has you right where they want you. They could basically kick you off land when they want. And there's an incentive for zoning boards too, for cities, towns, hamlets, I said, yes, hamlets, to disincentivize the use of tiny homes. Because you know what? If people start using tiny homes, their tax base is going to get smaller and smaller, because obviously people aren't going to pay as much in property taxes for tiny homes. And to tell you the truth, New Hampshire does not have a state income tax. Knowing this from Massachusetts, it's the next state over, but they get most of their, instead of having a income tax, a state income tax, they have high property taxes. So people start buying and using little houses. All of a sudden, that property tax, that is the state depends on, gets lower and lower and lower. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, I'm going to catch up with so many conversations here. Samuel Gray. Just tell him it's a storage shed for humans. Indeed. All right, let's see what else. This is interesting. So I've had to give the same speech to my sons that my dad gave to him and his dad and him and so on. How to act with the police. Yeah, how to act with the police. Indeed. Indeed. So, all right, I think I caught up with everything possibly in the chat. Here it is. Tenants are extremely well protected over here. Maybe too good. Yeah, it really does go, at least here in the United States of America, it really does go state by state. You can see notices here in my neighborhood telling people in English and Spanish that you can't get evicted by your landlord. It has to be via a judge, especially during the pandemic, right? So the idea about landlords pushing people out during the pandemic, that's not real. That at least it's more difficult for that to happen here in Massachusetts. Something's going on with Remember Sammy Jenkins. Oh, you had it. Oh, okay. Well, here it is. I'm sorry about your son having a major seizure. Having worked with people who've had major seizures before, it is a very disturbing thing to actually witness in real time. And I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah, I wish the best for your son. Indeed. David Paul says if they would tax the rich equally, these taxes on the middle and poor classes would slow down. Of course they would. If you haven't seen the latest David Cross is a comedian. He teamed up with the Gavel Institute, I think that's what it is. And it says, why does America suck at everything? A bit hyperbole there, but he does go through, it's a 15-minute video and really does highlight the issues facing the United States of America and what the causes of that problem is. And a lot of it's taxation. I want to just point out that the rich never want to pay their taxes. One of the problems with the mid to late Roman Empire is that the rich never paid their taxes in the empire. Let me say that again. In the late Roman Empire, middle Roman Empire, the rich found ways to never pay their taxes because there would be a tax forgiveness I think it's every 7 years, maybe it was every 5 years. I remember hearing about this on the Rome podcast I was listening to, in that rich, affluent Roman citizens were able just to put off paying taxes for years on end until there was a fat tax forgiveness every couple of years. And so the state would just say, oh, well, if you owe us taxes, don't worry about it. You're clean. You're free. You're okay. And so the idea about governments not being able to make rich people pay taxes, it is a chronic problem with our species. All right. Where are we here in time? Oh, wow. Halftime show. So many rants this morning. Let's go to the halftime show. Let's have a couple of chuckles before we go into the Christian prophetess. Oh, that sounds like I shouldn't be saying that. I was about to say before we start talking about Katt Kerr, the Christian prophetess, let's do something funny first.
So this single mom owns a winery.
Okay.
But the governor is going to take away her license so his brother's winery can make more money.
Corruption.
So she meets with the governor, and he's a salt and peppered-haired, blue-eyed hunk. Do not stop. And they fall in love. Oh my god. And the governor takes his brother's license away instead. Ah! And it's called the most wonderful time of the year. Ah!
Oh, wonderful. I've never been able to sit through a Hallmark movie. I've never had the desire to sit through a Hallmark movie. They all sound. Whenever I see the synopsis, the log line, for a Hallmark movie, it's like, this looks like the most horrible thing in the world. Hallmark movies seem to be just trying to really delve into how bad TV can be. All right. Hey, Scott Duke, thanks for the kind words. Hit the like button, folks, especially after that funny point, right? You know? All right. Let's take a look at what's the next story. What are we talking? Oh, Katt, this woman, right? Sure. You may know her. Katt Kerr, Christian prophetess. Yeah, that's a little, I put a filter on that one. I used it for a video of mine. But this is a story from the Friendly Atheist. Katt Kerr seems to be, she just needs to say crazy things. I think this is her brand. This is the prophetess, a prophetess. St. Patrick's Mansion in heaven is surrounded by singing shamrocks. More deep wisdom by self-proclaimed Christian prophetess Katt Kerr. She already thinks heaven is home to football. That's American football, foreigners. I just want to let you know that. Heaven, I'm sure if Katt was here right now, would be saying, this is American heaven with American football, cows driving tractors, and a city made entirely out of Jell-O, and a warehouse full of body parts. I don't even want to know about the body parts. I don't know why you need body parts in heaven. Let's go with the story. The latest insanity. This is what she said on this video. Patrick was a great winner of souls, and he is, and I can tell you, he's in heaven. I have seen his mansion, and because Jesus also has a sense of humor, he built Patrick's mansion in a field of 5-foot-tall shamrocks, and she laughs. Ah. Now she's saying this with a moderator because this is a show she does. So Schultz goes, "Wow, really? You've seen that in heaven?" And Katt goes, "Yes, I did. I saw him in heaven, and so he's got all these shamrocks that sing to him, and they work with Jesus Christ because God has a sense of humor." Katt claims St. Patrick's Mansion is surrounded by 5-foot-tall singing shamrocks, and people still think Christianity is reasonable. God having a sense of humor, it's an intriguing question. I think, in the most malicious way, if you think that smashing babies' heads on rocks is funny, God's a chuckle fest. He's just a chuckle farmer. That's what he is. And it's hard, well, she's in Florida, right? So that explains a lot of things. The woman's in Florida. So that explains why she has a following right there. Oh, Katt. American football is real football for lazy bums. Oh, well, it is. American football is ideal for TV watching. That's what it is. I know I'm not the first person to say that. Yeah. God's never had a sense of humor. Not exact. There's no laugh track in the Bible. There's no joke writers there. Since when does God ever had one of those? A sense of humor. Mean-spirited as F. And, even with mean humor, right? There's a lot of mean humor out there. I'm a big fan of Anthony Jeselnik, to tell you the truth. He's a mean comedian. That's his whole brand. Think of the most horrible thing possible and spin it into a joke. But, just mean. God. Let's see. Anything else going on here in the chat? All right. What else we got going on? Oh, Marco Rubio. And I'm going to share a video. I'm going to share a video about Marco Rubio and about Amazon and Jeff Bezos and unions. We'll take a look at this. Maybe I have to hit a couple of buttons first, everyone, right? We'll hit that button. And it's almost as if I didn't prepare for this. Almost. Oh, Bernie Sanders. Can't go wrong with that guy. All right, here we go.
What I wanted to say is, Jeff, you are worth 180 billion, $180 billion. You are the wealthiest person on earth. Why are you spending millions of dollars trying to defeat a union organizing effort in Alabama where your workers are fighting for decent wages and decent working conditions? What is your problem?
Last night on this show, Senator Bernie Sanders called out Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon and the richest man in the world, for opposing his workers' efforts to earn a decent paycheck. Democrats from President Biden on down have voiced their support for the right for workers to unionize as Amazon workers at this warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, try to organize in one of the most high-profile union campaigns in recent memory. And a few weeks ago, I pointed out that given the try-hard posturing of so many prominent Republicans about how they are now the party of the working class, this unionization push is a great opportunity for them. If the Republican Party really wants to be the party of the working class and of unions, well, that's great, okay? But it has to actually mean something. So here's a simple test, gentlemen. Go on the record with your support for the workers fighting for their rights against Amazon right now. Otherwise, we'll go back to assuming this is all an insulting act. Now, since I put that out there, I feel duty-bound to report on a Republican who did kind of answer the call in the most passive-aggressive way possible. Speaking of Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, who penned an op-ed in USA Today last week, the bottom line is Rubio says he supports the workers, which, great, welcome aboard, Senator. But his reasoning really has to be read to be believed. Quote, here's my standard. When the conflict is between the working Americans and a company whose leadership has decided to wage culture war against working class values, the choice is easy. I support the workers. It's no fault of Amazon's workers that they feel the only option available to protect themselves against bad faith is to form a union. Today, it might be workplace conditions. Tomorrow, it might be a requirement that workers embrace management's latest woke human resources fad. Basically, and I've read this op-ed a bunch of times now, Rubio's argument is, look, I don't like unions. I don't like union organizing campaigns. The Republican Party doesn't. We tend to stand with capital against labor. But because you corporations are defying our political and cultural sensibilities, now it's payback time. Rubio concludes, quote, Amazon's workers are right to suspect its management doesn't have their best interests in mind. Wealthy, woke CEOs instead view them as a cog in a machine that consistently prioritizes global profit margins and stoking cheap culture wars. Conservatives like Rubio and Tom Cotton and Tucker Carlson have officially stretched the word woke past any coherence. They are now arguing the richest man in the world who is fighting against paying his employees more, the historically conservative Chamber of Commerce, and the U.S. military, yes, the U.S. military, are all bastions of wokeness. Maybe that word just is not a useful descriptor. I mean, to be honest, part of the problem here is that Republican values in the post-Trump era, their keening sense of grievance, grow increasingly bitter and antisocial, honestly, by the day. And the more they act on these weird, like, sort of whiny, victimizing impulses, the more it alienates them from just larger and larger swaths of mainstream American culture. And then when that happens, they then turn around and accuse, the Pentagon or the Chamber of Commerce of persecuting them because they're woke. But sure, look, if concluding the richest man in the world is too woke for you is the reason Marco Rubio is going to support organized labor, I guess I'll take it.
Oh, yes.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube.
Marco Rubio, Republicans, it's almost as if the only thing they have are culture war issues, so-called issues that they can fall back on. There's this whole kind of trying to figure out what the Republican Party is all about. If it isn't about like outright fascism and xenophobia, then they're like, oh, well, I guess we might be for, trying to pivot and trying to say, hey, look, we're for regular everyday workers too. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. This is going to come as a surprise to all of you. But I have a sneaking suspicion the oil and gas companies have intentionally held up progress for decades. Possibly that the oil and gas companies, fossil fuel companies, have known that they're poisoning us. And like the tobacco companies, they have been holding up research, doing a misinformation campaign too, to make us all think that they're good guys. I know it's a crazy assertion. This story from the Guardian kind of supports it. Oil firms knew decades ago fossil fuels posed grave health risks, files reveal. I am shocked. I am shocked that oil firms knew for a long time that they were poisoning us. Exclusive document seen by Guardian shows companies fought clean air rules despite being aware of harm caused by air pollution. It's almost as if they're taking the same pages from the playbook of the cigarette industry. The oil industry knew at least 50 years ago that air pollution from burning fossil fuels posed serious risks to human health, only to spend decades aggressively lobbying against clean air regulations. A trove of internal documents seen by The Guardian revealed the documents, which include internal memos and reports, show the industry was long aware that it created large amounts of air pollution, that pollutants could lodge deep in lungs and could be like the real villains in health effects, and even that its own workers may be experiencing birth defects among their children. But these concerns did little to stop oil and gas companies and their proxies spreading doubt. Proxies, is that another word for Republicans? I think that could be another word for Republicans. Spreading doubt about the growing body of science linking the burning of fossil fuels to an array of health problems that kill millions of people around the world each year. Echoing the fossil fuels industry history of undermining of climate science, oil and gas interests release a torrent of material aimed at raising uncertainty over the harm caused by air pollution and use this to deter U.S. lawmakers from placing further limits on pollutants. The response from fossil fuel interests has been from the same playbook. First they know, then they scheme, then they deny, and then they delay, said Jeffrey Spren, a researcher at Harvard University who has studied the history of fossil fuel companies and climate change. They have fallen back on delay, subtle forms of propaganda, and undermining of regulation. The oil, whenever I watch Fareed Zakaria on Sunday mornings, and if you watch any of the Sunday morning news shows here in the States, sometimes, many times, there'll be an ad and you go to yourself, wow, this ad seems really nice. They don't even like really pushing a product. They're just trying to be a nice ad. And then at the end, and you don't even know what the ad is for. And then you see, paid for by the oil and gas companies of the fossil fuel industry or some group like that. It's like, oh, that's evil. That's just evil. All right, so what's going on next here? An internal technical report in 1968 went further, warning that air pollution may in extreme situations be deleterious to health, and acknowledging the oil industry reluctantly must accept that cars are by far the greatest sources of air pollution. The report states that sulfur dioxide given off by the burning of oil can cause difficulty in breathing, while nitrogen dioxide, often also given off by vehicles and power plants, can cause lung damage, and that there will be a clamor to reduce nitrogen dioxide emissions, probably based on suspected long-term chronic effects. Small particles given off by fossil fuels, meanwhile, are the real villains in health effects, the Shell report admits, as they can bring toxins, including carcinogens, deep into the lungs, which they would otherwise be removed in the throat. Faced with the prospect of federal government regulation, the fossil fuel industry swung into action. The health issue is increasing in importance, noted the minutes of the meeting of the Global Climate Coalition, which was a business lobby group in 1997. The GCC has got to be prepared to respond to this issue this year. So the Global Climate Coalition, I guess are a bunch of baddies. A scientist commissioned by the American Petroleum Institute, a U.S. oil and gas industry group, promptly told a congressional hearing in 1997 the link between air pollution and mortality was weak, before Exxon pushed out its own study claiming that there are no substantive basis for believing this particular particle, PM 2.5, was causing more deaths. Just like the freaking tobacco industry. The undermining of air pollution science is likened by some researchers to the efforts by the tobacco companies to muddy the connection between cigarette smoking and cancer. The fossil fuel industry was sowing uncertainty to maintain business as usual. And in all likelihood, they were collaborating with other groups. Like it was a see, conspiracies actually exist, everyone. I just want to say this, right? When I rant against conspiracy theories like QAnon, I'm not saying that real conspiracies don't exist. Real conspiracies do exist in the real world. And these are the kind of conspiracies. The idea that tobacco companies were actively creating disinformation to peddle their cancer sticks. Breathe, Andy. Just breathe. The undermining of air pollution. I'm just going to use my quiet voice right now. The undermining of air pollution science is likened by some researchers in effort to the tobacco companies to muddy the connection between cigarette smoking and cancer. Quote, the fossil fuel industry was sowing uncertainty to maintain business as usual, and the likelihood they were collaborating with other groups such as the tobacco company industry, said Carol Muffett, the chief executive of the Center for International Environmental Law. When you look at these historical documents in context, it becomes clear that the oil and gas company has a playbook they've used again and again for an array of pollutants. They used it around climate change, but absolutely we are seeing it around PM, this particular type of particle, as well. It's the same pattern. Well, I mean, if it's working for you, why would you change? Even as major oil companies publicly accepted the reality of climate change and vowed to address it, they have continued to dismiss the mounting evidence of harm caused by direct air pollution. Exxon has told the EPA that estimating a risk of death from particulate matter is unreliable and misleading, while in 2017, API demanded the agency relax standards around nitrogen dioxide, a pollutant linked to asthma in children and high mortality in adults from heart disease and cancer, claiming there was no proven association with harm and existing rules were more stringent than necessary. I used my Nixon voice just then. We've seen the oil and gas industry's disinformation campaign come full circle with renewed attacks on research that tells us what we've known for decades. Air pollution kills, said Kurt Davies, director of Climate Investigations Matter, which uncovered some of the historical documents. But what does the Trump administration have to do with any of this? The industry's approach bore fruit during Donald Trump's administration, where senior executives from Exxon, Chevron, Occidental Petroleum, and API met with then U.S. President in the White House. A cavalcade of clean air regulations were scaled back, such as the rules to limit pollution from cars and trucks, while the so-called transparency rule for science risked invalidating studies based on confidential medical data, which is the vital for bedrock air pollution data. There you go. Real conspiracies, oil and gas companies, right? F them sideways with an effing monkey wrench. Yeah. People wonder why I just get angry just like watching TV. I have to tell you, it's just like watching commercials. I was on Bees. I don't know if Bees in the chat. I was on Bees channel last night, and there was a commenter in the chat by the name of Traditional Catholic, and I'm like, oh my effing God! I felt like I was Elizabeth Warren sharing a stage with that Michael Bloomberg guy, and it's like I gotta put down my beer for a second and just talk about how you're virtue signaling when you're identifying as a traditional Catholic. Went on my rant. But yeah, getting back to the oil and gas company, evil institutions. They're just evil institutions. All right, I gotta go back to the chat and see what y'all are up to. Right. The right loves culture wars. Well, that's how they keep their base energized, MC Fractal, right? That's how they keep their base energized. That's how they get people going to the polls. All right, down we go through the chat, just see how everything's going. Well, yes, Brainbug has a very informative, entertaining channel with a broad range of topics. This is true. Oh, yeah. Well, MC Fractal, incredibly talented artist right there. Let's see if we have anything else. Yeah, that's right. The free market, James Henry, was the invisible hand of the market, was supposed to be solving all the problems. Turns out, once again, much like religion poisoning everything, out of control capitalism ruins everything. Oh, the lead and gas. How long it took us to get rid, us here in the States, to get rid of lead and gas. When I was growing up, there was lead and gas. I remember you could either buy lead or unleaded gas. And the idea that there was lead in paint, we've known for centuries. The Romans knew that the people who worked in lead mines didn't come out right. They went in one way, they came out another way. That lead was not good for you. Well, here we go, Tubman Templeman. Here's the perverse incentives in our system. People can't have tiny houses to have a decent cost of living, but the oil company can harm our health without penalizing. Yep, that's exactly it. Brain bug. I ordered my ear without nitrogen dioxide. I need to speak to the manager. Well, I mean, one of the benefits that's going to come out of this horrible virus is that hopefully more people will be working from home. Hopefully more people will be working from home, and that we don't need all these cars on the road. You still haven't gotten rid of? I know here in the States we have, I don't think we have, I'm pretty sure we don't have lead paint. We don't have lead in our paint. And in fact, at least here in Massachusetts, you get tax incentives for de-leading your house. And to tell you the truth, from what I understand in Massachusetts at least, and it's crazy that this goes from state by state, you cannot actually rent out a unit to a family with small children if you know you have lead paint in the house, that you would have to de-lead or encapsulate lead paint. Oh, yeah. And once again, we've known for centuries lead is dangerous, that it is that it'll mess up your brain. All right. Free markets do hate organized labor. There's no doubt about it. So what have we gone through this morning? I'm looking at my notes, and it looks like we've gone through actually quite a few stories. Hate crimes against Asian Americans, problems with tiny homes, local towns, cities, giving people who have tiny homes a hard time because they just can't get as, ultimately, it's a cash grab, right? It's squeezing people. People try to get tiny homes. Well, cities and towns don't like that because there's less property taxes basically being paid. That's the high and low of it. Katt Kerr, prophetess, Christian prophetess, St. Patrick. He lives in a mansion in heaven with 5 foot tall, I don't know, what is it? 4-leaf clovers singing to him. Because God has such a great sense of humor. Marco Rubio being just a big wussy regarding, unionization. And F you, Jeff Bezos, by the way. I think I should say that. Oil firms lying for decades about the cancer and the deleterious health effects their industry has on people. All right. Simply secular day. I thought tiny homes are for regular sized disappointed cats. All right. It is very difficult to prove discrimination when it comes to renting out homes, renting out apartments. It is very difficult. Well, yeah, unions, my dad was in a union. My dad, I mean, it's difficult to really tell people who are young. And I tell this to my kids because I think, and if you don't tell your kids these stories, and yeah, they may create a certain amount of righteous anger, but that's what you want in your children. You want them to know that there is the work to be done, that there is work to be done ultimately. And I've told my kids, and I've said it before on this channel, my dad had one job. He was part of a union. He wasn't in management. He had 2 houses, 3 cars, no mortgages. That was that generation. That was the last generation that a blue collar guy could have that lifestyle. And it isn't out of reach. Things can be done so that middle class blue collar workers, everyday people, can actually not kill themselves by working 5 or 6 jobs between a couple. You got a tiny house for your cat for $6, so that's pretty cool. That's a great picture, by the way. That's a great cat. Yeah, all right. All right, I'm going to do something funny, maybe feline related, right? Before we put a bow on all this.
Come.
We found out that they love this activity when we were pulling Leo in a sled. When we put the rope down, Camper came over and put the rope in his mouth and began pulling Leo. Leo will get on and off at will, and as you could see, he loves it. He will take a ride in anything.
Look at it. The cat was in a little, and the dog was pulling it. How adorable is that? How good. That should put a smile on your face, right? All right, everyone. Thank you for showing up. I want to thank my patrons too. I'm going to be running this small clip at the end of every show, just as a thank you for everyone. I just made, I showed it yesterday on the 3 o'clock show, but once again, this is just to thank people who are supporting me and supporting the channel via my patron account there. Yeah, that was really good, wasn't it? Scott Duke. The dog just loves carrying, yeah, it was great. All right, everyone. So I'm going to play the video, then I'm out. Thanks again for patrons. Thanks for everyone who supports the channel. Thanks for everyone who's showing up, who's watching, commenting. Very satisfying for me personally. I hope you get something from the show. I hope you do.